All right. Hello, YouTube. How's it going? We're live again. And today we're going to be we're going to be reacting to actually a video about with Joe Rogan interviewing Mr. Beast on his channel about his autoimmune disease. And if any of you guys been following my story and my journey, you know that I overcame an autoimmune disease. So this one kind of like rung home and hit home really close to me. And I found it really influential and really powerful as well because of the two people that are speaking about it and what they were sharing about it. And also, I found it really fascinating because it's very, very common what they shared, that it was the same information that I heard from doctors, the same kind of information when it comes to autoimmune diseases. And I found that two people that were really influential in the men's health space, because this is Men's Health Monday, that those two do not know about autoimmune disease. And I felt like this was a great opportunity for us to use their conversation and react to it to share a little bit more insight, a little bit more information into autoimmune diseases so that you guys can have alternative solutions. One of the things that I was really frustrated with the most when I personally had my autoimmune disease and I was in the hospital is that I didn't have another alternative or another solution. They said, hey, this is your only solution. This is your only option. And there is no other alternative. And I think Mr. Beast got the same information as well. So if he happens to see this or happens to watch this, I'd love for him to reach out and speak to us so that we can give a solution that could definitely help what he's going through in his autoimmune disease, because he's actually doing a lot of good in the world. And I think that he means well, and he has a good heart internally. And I think that he gives a lot back. And something like this could actually take you out where you're unable to perform the duties that you want to perform. And so he explains in the video how he got this disease as early as 15 years old. And I got it at 25. And those are also common timeframes that people get these diseases, which is wild to think that you're developing something as serious as autoimmune disease at that early age. So let's go ahead and react. We're going to jump right in to the reaction video. We have Mike Parsons with us as well to react like usual. So let's dive into this. And it's going to be a little bit different because we're doing it from a Zoom and jumping in through the React feature on Zoom. So here we go. Mr. Beast and Joe on Joe Rogan podcast right here.
Could have devoted like that, like laser-like focus, like cocaine-like addiction could have been on painting bowling balls or something fucking dumb. So I'm just grateful it was like at a young age it was something like this that has infinite upside, and I can just obsess, and I can obsess forever.
Before YouTube, was there another thing that you concentrated on with that kind of hyper focus?
I mean, a little bit of baseball. I got Crohn's when I was 15, so I played baseball nonstop. And then when I got Crohn's, I lost like 50 pounds. I'm like, fuck that.
You got Crohn's?
Crohn's disease.
Right, but Crohn's is something that's a genetic disease, right? So
yeah.
It just manifests itself. It started to emerge.
Yeah, you're not born with it, or I guess
not?
Yeah, most people get it like when they're around 15 to 20. I mean, I guess you're born with the genetics thing, but I guess it doesn't actually. The inflammation doesn't occur till that age. Yeah, and so I lost like 40 pounds because I was going to the bathroom like 10 times a day. And so I was a little obsessed with baseball. I like literally was playing like 2 or 3 hours a day. There was a period like where I kind of like quit YouTube when I was like 13, 14, like so I could just really focus on baseball. But then once I got that, which was probably a blessing, I was like, fuck it, I don't care anymore. And I just went all in on YouTube.
All right. So it's definitely really interesting. He shares his story on like how he jumped into YouTube and how he decided to quit baseball, and it's a blessing in disguise. And I really love and appreciate his attitude. He always has such a positive outlook on things, not like, oh, poor me, my dream is over, I can't be a baseball player, and become a victim. He's like, well, just going to do something different, So I definitely respect that mindset and that mentality. But when he's talking about genetics, right, and being born with it. Now, I was told for my autoimmune disease that I had a genetic marker, and I'm sure that's what he was told as well. It's such a common thing. Hey, oh my goodness, you have this disease, and you know what? We tested, and it looks like you have a genetic marker that also lines up with it. So it makes sense. Here, your diagnosis is complete, right? And it's just like, okay. But the thing that we've learned and we know, is that genetics, right? It might load the gun, but your diet and what you eat pulls the trigger, right? And so that's what's going to actually manifest. And that's what he talked about. He's like, well, I wasn't born with it. He's like, well, I wasn't. He was a little bit confused, right? And because they confuse you. I think confusion is the name of the game when it comes to those places, because when you get confused, like, I don't know, I give up. I'll just do what you say, or I'll just do what everybody else is doing. And so when the genetics part comes in, right, and they don't talk about the food, and they say that you have this genetic marker, right, and the reality is he was developing the inflammation, and that's what led to it having a flare up where it was too much. He was overloaded, you know, in his Crohn's is affecting the digestive system, right? So he's definitely overloaded. He was saying he's going to the bathroom 10 times a day, right? Losing 50 pounds just because he cannot keep food in. The body is just unable to keep food in, right? And so yeah, so what would you like to add to that when it comes to some of the genetics and some of the things that you know?
Yeah, so like the first thing that I think really stands out is the choice of wording, right? Or how he frames, you know, saying or introducing that he has this you know, these series of symptoms, you know, an autoimmune reaction. He says, I got Crohn's, right? Like sort of like it's strep throat, or, you know, a cold, a common cold that you pick up from someone else, right? And I know that's not what he was saying, but the way that he you know, the way that people in general, because I know this is not just a him thing, are sort of educated on it, or spoken
Yeah, I
about
think they feel, and the way I felt is that you develop this disease, or you have this disease, and the reason why they say I got it is because they make you feel it will never go away. They told me I was going to be on medication for the rest of my life, right? And so he probably was told the same thing. You're going to be on this medication for the rest of your life. So in his mind, you got it. It's not something that goes away. This isn't something that people reverse from or can overcome in his mindset, especially from what the doctors are going to say. So I think that's where that terminology comes from for him, probably.
Yeah, and I think also the concept or feeling of like it's genetics, and you know, it's sort of like a lottery. So you could have the genetics for it, and then you maybe get it, you maybe don't. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of like this dismissive, or like not connecting that there could be a balance or influence or something, you know, other than just you either get it or don't. You know what I mean? It's sort of, and that's good that he has the positive attitude for sure. But I think part of that positive attitude comes from totally releasing from the situation and saying like, it is what it is. I got it. Can't get rid of it, but it wasn't my fault. Couldn't influence it or change something. So, you know, that's I think a really important point to make, is that perspective is indicative of what a lot of people feel or think or are taught, right? And then, you know, going into what people generally think about genetics too is missing that there's a pattern. So it's like, you know, oh, well, I have a history in my family of heart attacks, you know, and then they don't look at the fact that, okay, well, where did you learn how to cook? Where did your eating habits come from? Where did your recipes, your go-to recipes come from, right? Your knowledge base on what to put together as a meal structure, the balance of how much of each thing to put together. Of course, you learn that growing up from the people that feed you, and they learned it from the people that fed them, right? And, you know, you look at blue zones, right, where people are eating specific diets and they're living longer, and it's like, what is that? Family? Is that genetics, or is that diet? Because when we're looking at the positive trends, we think, what are they doing to achieve that? Always. But then when it happens on a negative end, people, you know, say, well, it's genetics. It's, you know, and part of that could be influenced by some of these mega corporations, right? And the way that they sort of permeate into culture, and don't maybe want people to draw conclusions that whatever they're producing that's cheap and easy and convenient is not you know, helping this issue at all. So I think, you know, that's sort of where we can start off with on my end with comments on that.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. Let's go and continue on the conversation and get into the next part where they're talking about.
I was like, fuck it, I don't care anymore, and I just went all in on YouTube.
So this Crohn's, does this make you do you have to seriously regulate your diet?
Yes, very regulated diet. I have very, I don't know in words, like I run out of energy very easily, like because
that doesn't make sense. How's that possible? You have so much energy.
I don't. I'm probably one of the least energetic people you ever meet.
But you do so much. How's it possible? You have no energy.
I don't know, but because my immune system attacks itself, so it's very draining.
Right.
And so, yeah, I get very tired easily. I take a lot of naps and stuff like that.
I have a buddy of mine in Ohio that has it, and he can't eat bread. He can't eat.
Yeah, I can't eat like a fuckload of stuff.
So you can't have one of your own burgers.
No, actually, that's fine. It doesn't flare me up. Even when I eat burgers, I usually take off the buns and just eat meat. I don't really like bread that much, anyways. But no, that's fine. And the chocolate bar actually is good on my stomach too, which is why I'm pretty happy with that as well.
So what is it that really fucks with you?
Weirdly enough, corn for whatever the fucking reason. Corn, just like if I want diarrhea tomorrow, just give me some fucking corn.
Really?
Yeah. Corn, anything spicy, anything like overly processed. I'm trying to think. Like I don't.
What exactly?
All right, great. So this part that we're talking about, like some of the things he was eating and some of his diet choices and some of the things that was making an impact on him, right? And then even in the end, he talked about corn and how, how it was destroying him, and how he had to have a very specific diet and there wasn't certain things that he could eat and he's really sensitive to certain things. And he has a company you might not know called Mr. Beast Burgers, is like a burger company that he has. And it's, as you would imagine, kind of typical fast food burgers. And in his mind, he can't eat those burgers, right? Or he can eat those burgers except for the bread, right? And most likely what's happening in the bread and what's most likely happening in the corn and what's most likely happening in some of these things is causing a huge issue within his stomach and his gut and his microbiome and everything is what's on those foods, what's sprayed on those foods, the glyphosate that's sprayed on those foods, especially like the bread, you're having the wheat, most likely bread and wheat enriched wheat bread, most likely, right? The corn, almost all corn, is genetically modified that he's eating, genetically modified, as well as sprayed with glyphosate.
So is the wheat, right?
Is the wheat. Yeah, exactly. The bread. And so those, if you have an issue like this, like a Crohn's, where you're extra sensitive, where you actually cannot eat certain things because okay, let's say, for example, you eat something that's not so good for you. Let's say you drink some alcohol, right? And the alcohol's not good. We know it's a poison. We know it's a toxin, right? You might feel okay after drinking some alcohol because you have a different toxic load that you can handle. You know what I mean? But someone that's really sensitive, maybe someone that has been drinking a lot of alcohol and is on their limit, and it could put them over the edge. He's at this state with this Crohn's disease where his digestion system and all of his intestines and how his bowel system and everything is so damaged that anything is going to cause an instant flare up where you get an immediate reaction, right? So something that this is where we're going to get into the root cause. I think a lot of the root cause of these digestion system issues is the foods that we're eating that's sprayed with a lot of these chemicals and the genetically modified foods. And even like the burger, for example, even if the burger might not be sprayed with a pesticide or whatever, it's the food that they're eating, that builds up, inside of it. And that can often manifest in different ways because it's inside the flesh. And so it's not on the outside, right? Where you'll have that flare up. You might feel that within your bowels, but later, right? Whereas the bread, this, but people that might not be watching, they'll spray some of the wheat with this chemical right before they harvest it. So it's on there on the surface and not cleaned off or washed off or cooked off or not mixed into a bunch of different things like an animal product, right? And even the chocolate, you might not know this, but he has a chocolate company as well. And I'm pretty sure it's a milk chocolate company, I think, and so that particular company, right, in his mind is like, that's not making this impact on me, and because it is different. There definitely isn't the same amount of pesticides on that chocolate. So it's really interesting when he talks about like the things that you can't eat and the things that you can eat, and he's on this specific diet, and it's amazing the things that we'll go through, for our choices. And you'll go to the doctor and the doctor will not give you you have no responsibility, no accountability for any of your actions or any of your choices up to that point. Whereas this guy, if he was told, hey, you know what, the reason why you're in this position is because, some of these things you're eating can lead to this and lead to this and lead to this. He's a smart guy that he's already willing to change all these things, right? If he just got a little bit more information, he might be willing to make these changes. But some people are forced into living, this really restrictive lifestyle. I've seen people with, diseases like this or something similar, where they're unable to eat so many things, and then they fix their gut, they heal their gut, and now they can actually eat all the things that they were unable to eat before. They couldn't, corn would give you the shits, and now you can eat corn, right? Or you couldn't eat bread before and now you can eat it, right? Now, it doesn't mean it's not toxic to you, right? It still might be a little bit toxic, that corn, or it still might be a little bit toxic, that bread, but your body can actually handle it, right? Because it's been repaired, right? It's not to the breaking point where it hasn't been repaired. Most people do not give their body the time it needs to repair itself. You eat something in the morning that hurts you, then you eat something again in the middle of the day that hurts you, then you eat something again and at the end of the day that hurts you, right? And you have a few snacks in between that hurt you. You never actually give your body a chance, because you didn't have the education like, hey, these things are hurting me, right? Yeah, so what would you like to add to that section?
Yeah, I mean, well, you covered quite a bit there. But I would say the idea, so you have two different sort of stages or like faces to what's going on with the Crohn's disease, right? And one is going to be the symptoms, which is the inflammation, the pain, the discomfort, and either the constipation or the diarrhea or what have you. But the other thing you're going to have is the intestinal damage that causes that. So going back to we'll cover what Crohn's specifically is after this, but looking at the food and saying, okay, so if I eat the milk chocolate, that doesn't bother me, it seems to be fine, that's great. Well, all that means is when he eats it, he's not feeling damage, he's not having a flare up, right? And so when you talk about wheat, yes, everything's sprayed in glyphosate, right, or some other type of desiccant or pesticide or something, right, unless it's organic. And so your body, you break these foods down, this stuff gets trapped in your gut, as you were describing, right? Something like corn that's heavily GMO'd or what have you. And then when these, chemicals bind with your cells on your on your intestinal lining, of course, your immune system is going to start to attack it, right? And say like, what the heck is this foreign stuff? We need to attack it. And so then you get the the damage. But where you get the flare-ups, where you get the really the really uncomfortable nights, or the the extreme pressure and discomfort and bloating and stuff like that, is from foods that are tough on the digestive tract, or foods that have the ability to maybe be more abrasive or harsh physically on a compromised substance. The same way that, like, if you cut your skin and you put vinegar in it as compared to water, the vinegar will be not, it'll be much more unpleasant. So some of these foods will exacerbate the damage, but that doesn't mean, that they're the ones causing the damage necessarily. So, or more, conversely, on the other side of the coin, the chocolate, what I'm trying to say is, when he says, oh, it feels fine, it's like, well, that doesn't mean the chocolate's not doing damage. That doesn't mean that the milk and the dairy, which is highly inflammatory, is not causing damage, is not furthering that stripping or damage of the ileum or other parts of the digestive tract, right? It's more commonly, I think, the small intestine where the ileum is that they people get the most symptoms. But it's the concept or idea of I don't feel bad when I eat it, so that's perfect and it's not contributing to the problem, I think is very dangerous. And as you said, with some education, one could make the right choices, right? But I don't know that Mr. Beast, I maybe disagree with you that he would be willing to make changes, because, and I don't follow him. I don't know a lot of his content, but from watching the video, right, and reacting or assessing how he's sort of talking, I don't think he wants to take responsibility for it. It doesn't seem like he does, because I think, a lot of people, it's very difficult to navigate, right? And the doctors can really knock the wind out of your sails and make you, feel like there's nothing you can do. But I think a lot of people try to find some sort of answers, some sort of solutions, right? And his attitude is sort of, the way he's conveying it, at least in this talk, is sort of like, whatever, it is what it is. It happened to me, so be it. This is my life. I'll live with it.
Most people have like that almost undying faith in the medical system and their doctors, that like, you need to have a PhD and 2 PhDs and studied for 10 years to be able to be able to tell someone that gave that advice to him, that they were wrong, right? So like, how do you prove that? And that's kind of sometimes what some people need. So I totally get you, right? But one thing I would say really quick about the other issue that he's gonna likely to end up with is the if he doesn't change enough fast enough, is the nutrient absorption that he's getting. So if you are pooping that many times a day and you're losing that much weight and you're eating food, right, and you are having that much damage and you aren't really actually addressing the root cause, you're gonna constantly be in a state of nutrient depleted, unless you're taking something specific that's covering your bases on nutrition, that's absorbing well, because you have an absorption issue. So like, are you injecting, nutrients into your bloodstream? Like it's a question, like, what are you doing to get the nutrients? And if you're not, it's a matter of time, especially he's a young guy, and that'll catch up to you. And the average person that has an autoimmune disease, if they don't change anything, or don't change much, on average will develop another one within 5 years, because they often start from the same root cause. So that one where it stemmed from, you probably didn't change enough, where it's going to manifest in another part of the body. It's going to start to spread. I personally think a lot of these autoimmune diseases spread kind of like a cancer, because even mine, when untreated, right, in my spine, it spreads to the neck, it spreads to the hips. How is it spreading? Why is it spreading? In my mind, it spreads, and it acts similar to a cancer in a lot of ways. As far as the autoimmune disease, even picking different parts of the body, and often our food is where most of the cancer is coming from. Well, at least what we're putting in our body, what's going in our mouth, whether you call it a fruit or not. And then it's similar to an autoimmune disease. It's a lot of what we're putting in our mouth is causing these issues. Okay, so we're gonna go over one more quick part. You want to add something? Go ahead.
Yeah, just really quickly, I wanted to say also, like, the fact that he talks about, he's like, I can't eat bread because it aggravates it, whatever, but I'll eat a meat burger. Right. And it's like, well, so red meat, I mean, specifically, is really hard on the colon, right? And that's like not a secret, fact. That's very common knowledge. So, not connecting those dots is problematic. But also just on the doctor thing, people think, oh, they went to school for so long, I'll go get their answer. Their word is concrete and ultimate. But, in many cases, maybe it is. And if you want to go to a doctor and talk about like where things in your body are, what they do, stuff like that, like, yes,
physiology.
Right. Yeah. Your doctor is going to be very well versed. But with things like autoimmune diseases where they don't know what's happening, and they'll tell you they don't know what's happening, then they're no longer the ultimate authority. And I think that's something that we really need to get people to understand and accept. And that's not attacking doctors. That's not diminishing the hard work they've put in for other stuff. It's just, that's not what they do. That's, if they don't have an answer, then yeah, don't go find someone else who's been educated in the same system expecting them to have an answer. So yeah,
definitely. All right, well, we're going to continue on this next part of the video. This will be the last part of the video that we react. And if you want to watch this whole video, the link will be in the description down below, so you guys can get a chance to watch this whole one. As you can see, it's an 8-minute clip. We're going to watch the next minute or so on this clip right here.
What exactly is Crohn's? Like, what is the immune system doing?
I'm going to be honest, I've never fully understood it. It's something about my intestines where, like, the lining of it, like, the immune system attacks it. So my intestines are super inflamed. And so if it's not in remission, I basically just can't digest food because it's so inflamed, food just passes through and you just like shit it out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's like brutal, which is why when I first got it, I lost like 40 pounds in like a really quick time span.
It's often with ulcerative colitis too.
Yeah. I think
a friend of mine has it.
Ulcerative colitis is a little bit more extreme version of Crohn's. So thankfully I got a little bit of the dulled down version. But yeah, like sometimes it'll flare up and then I'm just like, I'm dead. I just lay in bed all day and I can't really do anything.
Is there any medication that you can take that improves it?
Yeah, so I'm on what's called Remicade, and so every 8 weeks they just do an IV with a huge bag, which essentially suppresses my immune system. So that's why I get sick very easily, because the answer to my immune system attacking itself is just to fucking nuke my immune system.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I know. So it's a little annoying. It's unfortunate. I'm stuck with it. What can you do?
And
all right, that part I think is really, really, really fascinating. Like I said to you earlier, like I really resonated with that really, really heavily as far as what the doctor said. They gave me one medication. It was $4,000 a month. They said, this is the only option. You're going to be on this for the rest of your life. It was an autoimmune disease in my spine. And I just, and he's taking something called Remicade, right? Which is exactly what they told me. Hey, this is going to suppress your immune system. Your immune system is attacking itself, right? And in your mind, you think, oh, okay, I guess that's what's causing my pain. I guess that makes sense, But when I looked into it deeper and found out like a huge piece of it is leaky gut, having holes in your gut, which is causing inflammation going into there. It's malabsorption and a lot of malabsorption and missing nutrients in a lot of situations. Each autoimmune disease might be a little bit different, but these are definitely some of the main root causes that lead to them being an issue. And so the doctors will tell you the immune system attacking itself, and then they give you something to weaken your immune system, right? And so what happens is that medication will make you feel a little bit better as far as reducing some of the inflammation. It's really, to be honest, an anti-inflammatory. It's just another type of steroid. It's just another type of anti-inflammatory, and it's listed as this autoimmune disease medication. There's a couple of them. The one that I was taking was called Humira, is the one that I was taking, and it works very, very similar. It works. People use that one for a plaque psoriasis or psoriasis on their skin, and so yeah, it's just so interesting to see, someone else, that you think of and such a high authority figure, has so much more resources, so much more money, so much more access to information. Even Joe Rogan asked, is there any medication? Like, what can you do? Like just totally clueless with the information, but it's not a surprise, right? It's like a tiny bit of a surprise, but it's also not, because also super successful people like that, that are really doing like a bunch of things, working hard. They're so focused on their thing, that for us to look at it is be like, how could you not know about the nutrition? How could you? That's what we've learned. Like we've learned that and we studied that, but I look back to when I was 29, suffering with an autoimmune disease. I had no freaking clue. I had no idea at all that diet and disease isn't even related. And Mr. Beast still has 5 more years to even get to that point that I was. You know what I mean? Who knows in 5 years when he learns, crap, diet has been impacting my autoimmune disease this whole time. Will there be a change? Will there be, a revelation, in his mind? Who knows? Like, I don't know, for sure. Right. Hopefully, this gets back to him. Right. But either way, those are some things that really, really stick out in my mind. And it also seems crazy wild that you would ever receive a medication that suppresses the immune system. Ever. What? In what situation is that the purpose of it? And I can't imagine any situation where that makes sense at all, because the immune system is like the number one thing that fights off everything that we have or anything that we have. And in a sense, some of the medication is designed to boost the immune system, right? Or some of the foods that we eat boost the immune system, or some of the vitamins or minerals boost it, right? Or the gut health boost it, right? And so it is just so crazy that, people are told, even this person, or myself, that are told that you need to take this medication to weaken the immune system, when that's probably your best defense for what you're going through.
Yeah, and it's, what the immune system does, as most people know, is it's sort of like the security system for your body, right? And the defense system when it comes to like viruses and bacteria, fungus, like all sorts of things, right? Pathogens of any kind. So yeah, suppressing it is just wildly irresponsible, I think. And I've been through the experience, with watching my father with the autoimmune disease and all the medications and biologics like Humira, steroids like prednisone. I can break down the prescription methodology of most doctors in my area, right? And the immune suppressing is just crazy. It's sort of like having it's like the equivalent, and part of it's the disconnected thinking. So my analogy maybe won't make sense for people initially, but it's sort of like having a warning, like alarm on your car dashboard that goes on, and you just put tape over the dashboard, right? You're like, I don't want to deal with that. It's like the chances are though that's telling you something else is going on. So the immune system, we tend to blame it or think like, people say like, oh, my immune system's attacking my cells, so it's the immune system's fault. It's the immune system's problem.
I'm immune compromised. Do you know how many people told me, oh, you're immune compromised, you need to be worried about COVID because you're immune compromised? Like,
Yeah. So the thinking is so strange, to blame the immune system and just assume that that's the immune system's broken over hundreds of thousands of years. It's kept our species alive. It's protected us against all kinds of things when we had no form of science. 99.99% of human beings being on the planet time wise, we haven't had medicine and we've survived. So the immune system is quite powerful, and I would say is very important. And if it's going haywire for people and if it's causing these problems, chances are our species isn't about to die and that our immune systems just are stopping working now. It's just a thing that happens. There's something else at play, right? And if it's attacking something, why? What is it that, if you had an automated like robot security system and it for some reason started like, seeing you as a threat or your family as a threat or whatever, you'd say, okay, the system sees them as a threat, but why? Why is it misidentifying them? What's going on, right? Like that would be the natural course of action, not, well, let's blow it up, get rid of it. We should just not have a security system. Like people wouldn't think that, right? They would, they might say, let's replace it or look at another one or whatever, right? But yeah, they wouldn't just say that, we give up, So the immune suppression is not the route to go on. And is going to cause a myriad of problems in the future, and just the lack of awareness, right, when he's trying to talk about what Crohn's is, right, shows again like that when people get diagnosed, they either just give up or they don't connect or don't want to search or look or dig up information, and I understand that, but that won't lead to a solution, unfortunately. And the only solution is to repair, as you said, like if you're not absorbing food, you need to start absorbing food, right? So it's like at what point does one start to learn, okay, how does a human absorb food? That's step one, right? How does a human absorb food? We understand that we eat it and it starts here and it goes out the back end and there's like a bunch of tubes that run through, right? And one's small and one's big and but like people don't understand beyond that. Okay, so what's actually happening? How do we get nutrients? And what I know about like villi, right? The fact that there's these pathways and capillaries that transport nutrients into the bloodstream and stuff like that. As soon as you start to learn that, then of course you're naturally going to ask, well, wait, if I'm not absorbing nutrients, could part of the problem be that my villi are compromised? Well, how do I repair villi? You'll naturally start leading to all these questions that there are answers for. And of course, we know how to solve these problems. We know about, the solutions to, or the solution, in terms of like biomedic, right? The combination of elements like fulvic acid and humic acid and prebiotics and probiotics and the way that you can blend it all together to kind of clean and rebuild and restructure that system all in one sort of motion, right? And it's also crazy to me that there's these solutions where it's like, instead of shutting down your immune system, why not try taking some like natural elements for 2 months, see if it works, right? We know how it works, right? We know about the clinical studies that are done, we know about the efficacy of it, but like the fact that that's not suggested, right? If you follow the money trail, it makes sense because Humira costs how much a month, right? And then if you don't keep it refrigerated and you spoil it, then it costs how much to replace it, right? And up here in Canada, where people have healthcare and insurance, right? The insurance companies are paying for it. So the companies that are producing it and selling it are like, perfect. Guess what? It's not 4,000.
You're still paying for it in the taxes, but yeah.
Yeah. But I'm saying it gets even abused more, right? Because the people paying the taxes don't get to look at the checkbook and say, I don't want to pay that bill. Right. So then you're like, well, if I get it covered and I've already paid for it, I'll take it. But yeah, it's even more expensive up here. So
it's even more of a trap. You even feel more trapped than here sometimes, but the people that feel trapped are like the ones that get that some do get free healthcare, down here in certain situations, and I think that a lot of them feel like they're usually the lower income and and then they feel like they're trapped because it's their only solution. And then they feel like, oh, well, I can't afford the healthy foods. But then it's so wild that the person that can afford the healthy foods and can afford the treatment and can afford the things will open up a fast food burger joint, you know what I mean? And eat the burgers. So it's like, and even like I don't know if you saw the one with Shaq, I don't know if you saw that one. There was one where I saw Shaq. I know we talked about Shaq before, but there was one, I don't know if it's the same one, where he was talking about, he's like, I don't like eating rich people food. That's what he said. I don't know if you've seen that one, where he's like, I don't like rich people food. And he's just like, rich people food, like caviar and whatever else he said. I forgot the other examples that he said. And then he's like, I like, food how when I grew up, where people that don't have quite as much money, right? Where he's just like, Popeyes and KFC, Taco Bell's, he's like wings, like he's like, that's the food that I enjoy, right? And he's obviously suffering, now in his later years, carrying all that extra weight, right? Whereas someone in my mind, now it's like you have the money, like there's you don't have to go through the rich people food. You don't have to go for the lowest quality food. You can find really high quality food that covers everything that you need. You could at that amount of money, you could hire a nutritionist that says, gives me every single nutrient that I possibly need, source it. I don't care the cost, get it, make sure it's in my food every single day, so, and it tastes great. He could just do that, if he really wants, and it's just kind of interesting, like, that people are at that mindset, but we've talked about that in the past, like that like almost that super hyper, almost masculine mindset of like, I can do whatever the hell I want and nobody's going to tell me what to do, including my food. And, it worked for me and I don't care what you say, until they're suffering or really hurting. And they're like, okay, maybe I'll make a change, which is so tough. I have a friend right now who wouldn't make changes. And her dad is right now suffering from cancer. And just now he's, maybe his last few days, who knows, and maybe willing to make changes now. And it's so hard to see people waiting to this last moment. Mr. Beast, Joe Rogan, like these guys, they don't have to wait. Joe Rogan is definitely a lot more educated when it comes to nutrition than Mr. Beast, because he talks about it so much, as far as the education standpoint. But Mr. Beast is not, and so, but he has the resources to fund it, to fund, he could just pay someone, hey, find out the information, everything that you could possibly find about Crohn's, and give it to me and let's do it, and he could just make that decision. It could be like that, snapping his fingers, and it'll happen because he has a team of people that could literally make that happen. So yeah, it's so interesting to talk about, but this was a great call, great conversation with two really people that look up to these guys. They listen, especially Joe Rogan, they listen to his nutrition advice. I don't know if they listen to Mr. Beast's nutrition advice quite as much, but they definitely are, follow every single waking word that these people say, and if this has a chance to reach some of those people that listen to them, that follow them, that get a chance to, maybe you're suffering with an autoimmune disease, you can definitely reach out to us at any time. Even my YouTube has plenty of resources to help people, to connect on my Instagram, Kevin _Luna. I could put that down below if you want to share yours as well. We can add yours too. And if there's any last parting words that you want to say.
Yeah, no. So my Instagram handle is my last name and my first name in opposite, like reverse order. So Parsons Mike, like the Alan Parsons Project, Parsons Mike. And yeah, please reach out. This kind of stuff is our passion. And we're both, autoimmune is something that's close to both our hearts, and we have a lot of experience. And it's not us saying that we have all the answers, but we like to dig, right? And we have some answers, and we have the right path to, direct people towards. And the work is really ultimately the work is in each individual when they're, they're called upon to make change, when their body is trying to tell them it's time to make change. It's time to shift what you're putting inside, right? And which totally makes sense, right? Like if your engine stopped working properly, the first thing that you'd probably do, if a mechanic like checked it and said there's no lights, there's no indications, there's no systems that are faulty, the engine won't run. Next thing you're going to do is check gas. Do I have gas? Is the gas okay? Right? Is what I'm putting in the system causing the problem? So yeah, it's about directing people. I think, in your and my case, Kev, directing people in the right, focusing people in the right direction. And reach out, please, and chat. If you have comments, questions, as always, for Men's Health Monday, if people have stuff they want us to talk about, or you want to follow up on stuff we've talked about, please reach out. We're more than happy to make new friends, to communicate, and to share what we know, and have discussions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and see you guys next week, same time.